In this video, I'm going to tell you about the craziest 2 weeks of my entire life. This is the story of when I lived in airports and on airplanes for 2 weeks straight. 92,000 miles flown, 175 hours on airplanes, 150 hours in airports, 15 business class flights, 14 airport lounges, 3 countries, 2 nights wandering the streets of Hong Kong. One crazy adventure. So it's summer of 2015. We're about to start traveling full-time in 2016. So I'm in like full-blown travel hacking mode, trying to figure out how we can earn the maximum amount of frequent flyer miles when I come across this crazy deal.
So I'm at work and Nate calls me. He is so pumped up about this crazy deal. He's throwing out all of these numbers and miles and status and countries, and I really did not understand what he was talking about, but he promised me that I would benefit if I allowed him to leave me for 2 weeks, get on an airplane, and fly around the world for 2 weeks.
This is true trust.
So I said yes, but this is Nate's adventure, so I'm gonna let him take it from here.
And we're off. So after I got off the phone with Kara, I proceeded to book 3 business class flights that were round trip from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Hong Kong for $700 a piece. Now these flights should have cost probably around $5,000, but it was a mistake fare. So moving forward, to understand the story better, you need to understand 2 terms, and that's mistake fares and mileage runs. A mistake fare is essentially when an airline sells a ticket way too cheap on accident, and that's exactly what was happening right here. Now, a mileage run is when you fly from one destination to another with no intention of actually like going and enjoying that destination. Instead, you're flying the trip just to earn the frequent flyer miles. So fast forward to October 2015, I'm about to leave for my mileage run. And at this point, Kara and I have bought a camera and we have the idea that maybe we'll like record some of our travels. So this is my first attempt at essentially vlogging. And obviously it didn't go too well because I'm sitting here explaining the story to you instead of just you watching the video. It's actually a little painful for me to go back and watch because I feel like it's really embarrassing. But I just wanted to tell you this because this is why I have a camera on this trip and this is where all of the video clips are coming from. Now Kara is calling me before I leave. Hey.
Hi.
You're on speakerphone during my first video diary.
Yay! Hello, everyone.
I don't think I've done a very good job so far. So the mileage run actually started in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I live in Tennessee, so first I had to book a flight from Nashville to Sao Paulo using 30,000 United miles. So this entire trip actually started with me flying from Nashville to Sao Paulo. And this is where the mileage run itself actually begins. I think in order to be able to follow along with this like complicated, crazy 2 weeks, the easiest way to do that is going to be to break it up into 3 sections. And that's going to be the 3 round trip flights that I flew between Sao Paulo and Hong Kong. So my exact route of what I'm going to call part 1 is this. Starting in Sao Paulo, I flew 9 hours to Dallas, then 16 hours to Hong Kong, then 3 hours to Bangkok, then 6 hours to Tokyo, then 16 hours back to Dallas, and 9 hours back to Sao Paulo. And that was part 1 of 3. And just to give you some perspective on how much flying that is, the flight from Dallas to Hong Kong is 16 hours, which makes it the 12th longest commercial flight in the world. All right, I just got to Brazil. This means I'm done with the first leg of my mileage run. I think it took somewhere around 72 hours to complete the first leg. So from here, I've been to Bangkok and back, and it's about 9:30 in the morning here, so I'm gonna go find a lounge and grab a cappuccino. Also, I bet I've walked 3 miles on these little moving escalator things. These things should be installed everywhere. At this point, some of you are probably starting to feel sorry for me for spending that much time on airplanes. Well, let me tell you, it actually wasn't that bad. I was really enjoying myself. So every single one of these flights was in business class. I had a full lay flat seat. When I got on the plane, I could watch as many movies as I wanted to. They were serving me 3-course meals. And then when I got to the airports, I was going into the lounges and eating more free food. Actually, the biggest problem with this entire trip was just how full I got from eating so much good food.
I'm currently on my way to the Centurion Lounge to get a free massage, a shower, and breakfast.
This is my third meal in like 4 hours of stuff. So at this point, I'm 6 days into the trip and all I've done is fly around on airplanes and go in a bunch of different airports. Probably the most interesting thing that happened during the first part of the trip was that I stayed up all night in the Bangkok airport. So I decided that I was gonna try to keep my body on Central Time. So that meant that any time I got to Asia, I had to stay up all night.
All right, so I got to Bangkok about 2 hours ago, and I came in a lounge that I could get in with the priority pass, and when I walked in, they told me that I could only stay for 2 hours. Luckily, they told me there are 6 other priority pass lounges in the airport, so basically what that means is for the next 6 hours, I have to opt to 3 different lounges.
Okay, on to part 2, and we're gonna start with the itinerary. I flew 8 hours from Sao Paulo to Miami, then I had a short flight from Miami to Dallas, then another 16-hour flight from Dallas to Hong Kong. Then after a layover in Hong Kong, I flew 16 hours back to Dallas and then another 9 hours back to Sao Paulo. So during part 2 of the trip, it was my first time leaving the airport. So it's day 8, I land in Hong Kong at like 6 p.m. and my next flight doesn't leave till 1 p.m. the next day. So I have a ton of time, but it's like all during the night. But again, I'm not sleeping, so my plan is just to like go out into Hong Kong and experience as much as possible.
All right, I just emerged from the subway, and this is the first time that I have been outside an airport or an airplane in 7 days. And this place looks awesome, symbols everywhere, and I can't understand anything.
Keep in mind, at this point, Karen and I really haven't done very much traveling. This is one of my first major international cities to be exploring, and by the time I actually get into the city, it's already dark. So the first thing I do is I go try to find this place called the Temple Street Night Market. So after that, I went to find some food, and I wanted to eat something foreign. And I remember seeing these ladies on the side of the street cooking like a bunch of weird things on sticks. And for some reason I was feeling really adventurous, even though I was gonna be spending like the next week on an airplane. I don't know why I was feeling so adventurous, but I bought these squid legs that were cooked in some weird liquid, and they were just like, it was one of the worst things I've ever had.
Here we go, about to try squid octopus thing on a stick. Well, just said I don't really like that. It's really hard. It's got about the texture of cartilage. Kind of like the hard part in your ear. That's not really bone, that's about what texture this has. Yeah, I paid less than $1 for this and I'm not gonna finish it. But I'm being laughed at by the Chinese ladies that cooked this food for me, so I took another bite to be polite. Alright, first meal in Hong Kong, not a success.
So that was like one of my first crazy foreign food experiences, and it was not very good. Next, I read about how beautiful the Hong Kong harbor was, so I made my way down to the harbor. Now at this point, it's like 2 a.m. This was the first time that I learned that people sleep in McDonald's in a lot of Asian countries. Like I thought they were homeless people, but it turns out they were like businessmen just sleeping in McDonald's.
I feel super ashamed to admit where I'm at right now because this is the first time that I've ever done this since I've been in another country. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm at McDonald's. I came for the Wi-Fi. I promise not to eat McDonald's. I just got a Coke. And so I use the Wi-Fi to figure out where the flower market is that opens, or sorry, not the flower market, the fruit market, to figure out where it is because it opens at 3 and that's my next stop.
So I go down to the fruit market and it was just absolute chaos.
It's pretty intense trying not to get ran over by all of the carts running around with fruit on them. This is actually just the street and I'm in somebody's way. This is actually just the street that's outside of the fruit market, but I was scared to walk through the fruit market with this camera because I might get run over. But I'll try to walk you through it. So here we
So the subway station opened back up at 6 a.m. and when it did, I jumped on the subway to go to Lantau Island, which is where this huge Buddha statue sits up on a hill. And when I got there, it ended up being closed until 10 a.m. So I made the very poor decision to wait until 10. Then I ran up like hundreds of stairs to see this huge Buddha statue, and I thought I was gonna get this beautiful view of Hong Kong. Turns out it doesn't even actually face Hong Kong, so I didn't get the view. And then I had to rush back to the airport to catch my flight at 1 p.m. that I was like so close to missing. I would have screwed up the rest of the trip. But thankfully, I made the flight and I flew from Hong Kong back to Sao Paulo to complete leg 2 of the trip. One of the things that I forgot to tell you is probably the biggest reason that I went on this entire trip was to earn Executive Platinum status with American Airlines. Executive Platinum is American Airlines' top tier status that offers a ton of bonuses. So I had originally calculated that it was going to take me 3 round-trip flights from Sao Paulo to Hong Kong to earn Executive Platinum status. But when I got back to Sao Paulo after part 2, I checked my American Airlines account, and to my surprise, I had earned American Airlines Executive Platinum status already. I didn't take into account the business class bonuses or the bonuses that I would get from earning status. So at this point, I basically could have gone home, but I had one more round-trip flight from Sao Paulo to Hong Kong. So this brings us to part 3. Actually, one more thing before we move forward to part 3. When I got back to Sao Paulo, I actually had a 36-hour layover. And at this point, I was planning on going out into the city and staying at a hostel for the night. But when I got stamped out and I was about to leave the airport, this customs guard pulled me aside into this little room and was asking me like what my plans were, where I was going. And he basically advised me not to leave the airport and go out into the city. So it seems silly now with all the traveling we've done, but basically he scared me enough that I decided not to leave the airport. I went back to the lady that had stamped me into the country and just pretty much begged her to let me back in the airport, which thankfully she did. So this was my one night that I actually spent on the ground as opposed to in an airplane. It was by far my most uncomfortable night because I slept in a lounge on 2 chairs that were pulled together. I would have much rather been sleeping on the airplane all 15 nights.
All right, it's about 1:30 in the morning here in the Sao Paulo airport. The lounge I was at just closed, but I'm told that there's a 24-hour lounge in Terminal 2, so I'm making my way in that direction. Been walking for about 20 minutes and haven't seen a single person, and this part of the airport is a lot older and sketchier than the international terminals.
Okay, now for real, part 3. For part 3, I flew another 9 hours from Sao Paulo to Dallas, then another 16 hours from Dallas to Hong Kong, then from Hong Kong back to Dallas for another 16 hours, and then from Dallas back to Sao Paulo for 9 more hours. So the highlight of part 3 of the trip was visiting my first class lounge. At this point, I had earned Executive Platinum status, so when I got to Hong Kong, I was able to enter the Wing First Class Lounge. And if you've been watching our videos, you know how much Kara and I love first class lounges, and you've actually seen this one several times on the vlog. But this was my first time visiting a first class lounge, and it was just like my mind was blown. There was a free sit-down restaurant with sushi. They had the crazy cabana thing. Like I said, you've already seen it, but it was just like, I had no clue that stuff like this existed in airports. So by far the highlight of part 3.
Just picked up my boarding pass. I have 2 hours here in the Hong Kong airport, and I received my first ever lounge invitation. Let me show it to you. This is insane. I'm in the Cathay Pacific first class lounge, and this is what they call a cabana. It's crazy. It has a bathtub, a shower, a sink, and it's huge.
So this pretty much brings us to the end of the mileage run. After going to the first class lounge in Hong Kong, I returned back to Sao Paulo and then flew from Sao Paulo back to Nashville. So I've been gone for a total of 15 nights and spent 14 of those sleeping on airplanes. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what were the benefits that I got from this crazy mileage run and for flying around the world for 2 weeks straight? I'm gonna attempt to explain the math to you. So after all this flying, I earned 313,000 American Airlines miles, which I value at 1.5 cents a piece. So basically, I earned $4,695 worth of American Airlines miles. But to get the true value, you have to take out the amount of money that I spent on the flight. So 495,000 minus 2,100 equals $2,595 worth of free flights. So that's the value in frequent flyer miles that I earned from doing this mileage run. In addition to the frequent flyer miles I earned, I also earned executive platinum status. Now, to earn executive platinum status, you have to fly 100,000 miles on American Airlines. And when you earn executive platinum status, these are the benefits that you get. Priority boarding, free upgrades, access to first class lounges, and free award flight changes. Now, we were able to use all of these benefits to our advantage during our first full year of travel. It was really nice being able to get on the planes first. We definitely used the first class lounge access to its fullest, and you'll know that if you've been watching our videos. And also the award flight changes were huge for us because we could book an award with points, and then if our schedule changed, we could change that award flight free of charge. So now the big question, was this worth it? Yes, 110% yes, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think even if I wouldn't have earned the frequent flyer miles and the status, I had so much fun doing it that I probably would have just paid for it. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, but this time I would bring Kara with me because she was pretty jealous by the time I got back. So this brings us to the end of this crazy mileage run. Kara and I spent like hours trying to figure out how to take 2 weeks worth of like craziness and put it into one concise story. So hopefully I didn't completely lose you. This is a video that Kara and I have been meaning to shoot for a really long time. It's just been such a big thing to boil down into one video. We've just been putting it off and putting it off. So I'm so glad that it's finally getting out to you. We didn't shoot this video for the purpose of promoting what I'm about to promote, but it seems like a good time. So I have actually created an ebook that will teach you how to find and book mistake fares called the Mistake Fare Manual, and I'll link that down below. And I've also recently launched a full travel hacking course, and if you buy the travel hacking course, then you get the Mistake Fare ebook for free. So both of those are linked down below if you do want to check those out. If not, I really hope you enjoy this crazy story. What are those? Will not be eating there tonight. And apparently I am the only one who was connecting to another international flight. There was one really interesting thing in this bathroom. I've always heard about the fancy toilets in Japan, and check this out. Yes, that is a bidet, and I may or may not have tried it out. And who knew? They have dryers. I have no clue why there's a cow in the middle of the road. I am off to find the ladies' market, which I think is ladies who sell things and not ladies being sold.
If it is the latter, I will run quickly